Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. I'm joined by an author who has written a book, and he's got an interesting journey because he's got 9 kids, and I have two. Obviously, everybody knows I have two, but I could never imagine having 9 kids. So I'm going to dive into his story. But my good friend Andrew Stillman has joined me on Dad Up. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thanks for having me, Brian. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Nice to meet you. I'm excited to dive into this because I think for anybody who knows, when you have a couple kids, you lead a pretty hectic life. Having 9, I don't know. I guess this is what I hear, Andrew, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, but I hear that, having two is busy, but once you start having, you have 3 or 4, it doesn't matter how many you have after that. It kind of all works out.
I'm glad you said that because I get that question from people all the time. They have 2 or 3 kids and they're like, well, how do you do it? I only have three. It's one of those cheaper by the dozen scenarios. So, first of all, um, I've been in that position where I had 2 or 3 and it still felt crazy. But now that I've got 9, and by the way, all the same wife, I have one wife that has given me 9 children. I'm still married to her. She still loves me. So the older ones will by default kind of help out with the younger ones, but the other secret benefit is they're not always seeking your attention. So they have other people to interact with besides just mom and dad. So when I see parents that have one child, I said, well, yeah, that kid's always seeking your attention.
Mhm.
So the percentage of time it takes to deal with that one child is very high. When you have 9, and by the way, oldest daughter, as well, she's moved out, but I still have 8 in the house right now. So it just makes things a little bit different. You have to live and think differently when you have this many children. So we don't have a lot of new cars. I don't have a lot of car payments and things like that. Dinner is always different. I mean, last night for breakfast, I woke up. It was obviously Mother's Day, so I made breakfast burritos for everybody. And there's a huge pot. You're using usually 18 eggs to feed all these people. A whole tortillas, a bag of cheese. You just do the whole thing. And to make sure it was ready on time for everybody, I had one tray. I put a piece of paper on it. I already had it made, cooked. I just prepped it all, threw it on the oven, so it was all ready. So it was time for us to eat. So you definitely do things way different, and it just makes it way different when you have that many people and that many different personalities at different stages. Because I'm 47 right now. And I have friends of mine that are grandparents, and they're entertaining their grandchildren. And I also have friends that are parents that are just having children at that stage of life. So I've got both of that. I don't have any grandchildren yet, but I'm sure it's coming. But you live way different, and it's always an adventure. There is no downtime. This thing about, oh, I'm going to go home and relax. No, I shouldn't say this on a podcast because my wife will be like, what? Yeah, I go to work to relax. So when I'm at home, it's work, 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 busy with the kids, doing things. It's a little bit slower pace when I get to work and actually do my job. So that's when I relax, if that's the word for it. So it makes it way different.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I just think that my boys are we're going to go through the ages of your kids, but my boys are 26 and 23, and I know that even through their preteen years, through their teenage years, there were, especially in those times when they played sports and things like that, it seemed like we were constantly on the go with different things, whether it was practices, games, birthday parties, hanging out with their friends, meeting up with families. I mean, it was constant. It seemed like every weekend we didn't have a weekend that we were free to just kind of chill. And now I think, I think about, like, I talk to people that I know that have younger kids, and I go, yeah, this is a busy time. I could never do that again because, right now obviously my boys are older, so they're gone. So it's like we have plenty of weekends where we just chill now. Um, with 9, shoot, how long is that going to go for you? So how old's your oldest daughter and then your youngest, and can you remember their ages?
Okay, so strangely enough, I'm the one that remembers the birthdays, the anniversary, and all that stuff more than my wife does. That falls on me. It's just one of those things. One spouse that does it, the other one's not as good.
That's
So
my
oldest,
wife. She does it
yeah,
for
there you go. Oldest daughter is 26. She just turned 26 in March 2nd. Next daughter is 17 and a half. My son just turned 16 yesterday, so he's already got himself a truck, and we're just waiting on him to take his driver's test, so he'll be driving. Next daughter's 14. Next daughter is 13. I guess I should have said the names. Esmeralda's 26, Emily's 17 and a half, Mark Anthony's 16, Victoria is 14, Catherine is 13, Alexander is 10 and a half, almost 11, Daphne is 8, Augustus is 6, and Veronica is 3. So that's the gambit of my children.
So that's three boys.
3 boys, very good. 3 boys, and they each have 6 sisters. So that that really throws off the people like three boys with 6 sisters each. So I want to touch on what you just said because the weekends are hectic. So I have Emily's working, Mark Anthony's working, so they're doing their work on the weekends. Esmeralda's moved down. Victoria plays soccer for IMG, so every weekend she's got a game or a tournament or something. Catherine plays soccer for the West Florida Flames up in Brandon. So they're also doing the same thing. There's always games and practices. My son also plays soccer for West Florida Flames, and my daughter just finished her league at the Mutiny. So I have 4 playing soccer right now, and the weekends are so hectic. We literally had 12 soccer games a couple of weekends back. 12.
Wow.
And I was only not able to be at 3. Older sister helped maneuver some of the other children. But like you said, you are going, going, going. And I know it's going to keep going for a while because the baby's 3. So even if the baby makes it to, 17 or whatever, that's another 14 years of this insanity. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. I love it. It's a lot of fun. It's constantly something new. And people always think I have this detailed schedule with everything set up and I know where I need to be. Man, it is not that way at all. So for me, the being able to just change on the fly is how I have to live my life. Because if this kid gets sick, I got to dip, run to the school, pick them up. If I have to be somewhere for my children, which sometimes, you have school events, 3 or 4 or 5 in a day that you have to be at, you just got to make it work. So thankfully, over all the years, I've been able to develop a business that has given me some time freedom. I'm in the tree business. So that's what we do. We trim trees. But I have a great team on my side. They make sure all the things are covered. The boys make sure everything's done. So I come in the morning, I get my day started. I make sure the dispatch is done. And then I have a little bit of time freedom to do what I want to do as dad. So when people do ask the question, hey, what do you do for a living? I say, I'm a full-time dad and I cut trees on the side because that's what it feels like. I mean, you are just constantly, constantly, constantly going. And it's fine. I wouldn't trade it for anything. We're the family that if there's going to be a kid that wants to come along or spend the night or whatever, I don't care because it's not that big of a deal to have another mouth in the house. And they usually like coming over because there's all the siblings there and they get to interact with everybody. So the weekends are beyond hectic. I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel because I'm guessing by the time I get to that light at the end of the tunnel, I'll probably be a granddad with a bunch of grandkids wanting to do stuff.
Yeah,
And I hope I have the energy.
I'm gonna imagine you will be. I mean, if you got a daughter that's 26 and your youngest is 3, by the time that youngest is starting to hit those preteen years, I'm pretty confident you're probably going to be a grandfather already. So yeah, I mean, that's crazy. I want to ask you this though. This is going to be an interesting question for somebody like you, because for me, as a dad of 2, it was relatively easy for me to be at their different activities, be able to be at their games. You just said you had 12 games in a day and you only missed 3. How in
No,
the world,
in the weekend.
I mean, 12 games in a weekend and only missed 3. How in the world are you balancing all that time, making sure, because you said your number one job is being a dad. So you have to make sure that you're devoting time to every single kid. So how are you balancing that time?
Well, I touched on it a little bit earlier. At each age group, they require different things. So, the small one isn't going to need as much attention as the middle child, and the middle child is going to need more than the oldest one that's moved out. So I think at different stages, they're getting different amounts. And I got to say this as a blanket. It's easy for you to say you don't have a favorite child because you've got 2. And I agree with that. I do not have any favorite children. There are some that are doing great at the time. There are some that are not doing as well at the time. And I feel like I love all my children equally. I would take a bullet for either one of them, not even a question asked. But you have to there's certain discipline that's going to happen at this age. And then it's not going to be as harsh when maybe you're older, 17, 18, because you're on your way out. So I feel like you got to train them young, ingrain them with the values that hopefully will transpire as they get older. So that weekend, here's how we did it. My wife, I took the kids to school. So it was Thursday, Friday. We had a game on Thursday, a game on Friday, and then there was 10 games throughout the rest of the weekend. So my wife took them one morning, and I drove up after I got the cruise out. So I went to that one on Thursday, and then the same thing on Friday. And then Saturday, I had 3 games to be at. My oldest daughter, my second oldest daughter, excuse me, took the younger one to play soccer. I went to the one in Tampa, and then I zipped down to the one in Bradenton at IMG. And then I had to go back to Tampa for another game for my son. And he ended up spending the night with a friend so he could be at his game the next day. And then I came back to IMG for another one. So it's just how you have to do it. So there is no, that perfect planning that you try to do. It doesn't work in that scenario. So unless you have, 5 or 6 servants, and I'm not wealthy, I don't have any of that. I have a wife and the children. We kind of help. We do have family that's local, but it's not the type of family that kind of comes and helps and does that kind of stuff. We don't have that support structure, which I wish we did, but we just don't. It's okay. But yeah, you have those that are exhausting. And then this past weekend, we didn't have any games or anything. The children are signed up for a futsal, which is indoor soccer class. So I had them there that morning, and then I had them there on Sunday as well before Mother's Day. So you do have some down, but it's still constantly going. They want to get in the pool, which is fine. I have to make dinner again, which is all the stuff that happens in a house. And, you have to make sure the laundry's done. You have to make sure the grocery shopping is done. So there's always something that needs to be done. The kids come downstairs. There's a huge smorgasbord of food all over the place. Everybody takes one bite and then leaves. And I'm like, pause the movie, like, heck no. I did not make all that food for it to go to and nobody's going to eat my food. That's not going to happen. So as far as having the big family, there's always stuff to be done. There's always trash that needs to go out. There's always clothes that need to be washed. There's always floors that need to be cleaned. We do have a gal that comes and helps us on Wednesday to help, do a little bit more of a deep cleaning on the house. And so we do have that help, but there's always something to be done. So you hope that the kids are doing the chores they're supposed to do. They have to be constantly reminded. And unfortunately, in today's society, the kids have the internet and the Wi-Fi, and they're always trying to sneak away so they can be on that. So you have to battle that. And I would like to tell you, oh, I'm the perfect parent. I manage their time. No, that's not how life works. It's a nice concept, but it's just not how life works. There's a lot of reacting. There's a lot of, we got to clean the car out again because we took a road trip to do some soccer. So that's how it works, man. And it is exhausting. So like I did say, coming in on Monday morning is kind of a relaxing break from the weekends.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, I want to ask you this. I mean, I know you wrote the book. I do have the book. Thank you for sending it out. Here's the book, Whole Wide World of just basically being a dad. And I know you wrote it as kind of a dedication to your kids, but a dedication to, I guess, yourself for being a dad that's involved and active with his 9 kids. Tell me a little bit more about I guess, your reasons behind it.
So I want to tell you the reasons behind it, and then I also want to figure out, because I still have not clarified who the book is for, and I'll get into that. So we're at a soccer tournament. My 8-year-old, she was 6 at the time. She comes up, gives me a big hug. She's like, Dad, I love you so much. And I said, my favorite job in the whole world is just, what's that? I said, being your dad. So she leaves. And I thought, you know what? Kids need to hear that. So I pulled out my phone and I typed up this little story that you just held up. Obviously not the illustration, but the words. So my wife and I are brushing our teeth in the Airbnb. I handed her my phone. I said, what do you think? So my wife, she reads the little story there and she's like, oh, that is so sweet. Where'd you find it? I said, I just wrote that. And of course, my wife is like, oh, that's so sweet. So I thought, kids need to hear that. So that was Thanksgiving 2023. I went to work. I was able to find an illustrator. I didn't want to do artificial intelligence illustration that seems to be what everybody's doing now. I don't want that. I want the human touch. So I found a girl. Her mother went to church with a guy that works with me, and they were able to put us together. So I gave her my idea, and I'll show you the first illustration I gave her that I wanted her to do was the King of France in his underwear. So that's what there. I'll hold it up right there. So that's the illustration she did. We did a little bit of critiquing on it, but we ended up sticking with that. So the whole concept of the book is to tell the kids, no matter what opportunity that I could be, I would rather be your dad. So pretty much every page finishes with the line, I would rather be your dad. So the reason I say that is, and that I don't know exactly who the book is written for, is a lot of people think, well, it's a book for dads. And I'm like, well, okay. But I think it's more of a book for kids from dad, because I feel like in society, there is a kind of a non-importance of the father role. And that's why podcasts like yours are so important. The problem is dads that are seeking to be better dads are going to be on this, and they're going to watch you, and they're going to say, hey, give me some advice. Give me something I can use this week, Brian, that I can connect with the kids. The dads that need to be the better dads, they don't even look for that,
Right.
right? So, which is kind of annoying. But this is a way for dad is supposed to sit down with the kids, read it together, and I'll read the King of France lines just for those that aren't familiar with it. You know, it says, if I could be the King of France and give orders in my underpants, it still would never make me dance because I would rather be your dad. So it's just these little funny little rhymes, and it makes the kids realize no matter what I could be, I'd rather be your dad. So I even put at the, let's see what page that is. I think it's 30. Yeah, page 33. I left this blank on purpose. So whatever job you do, you can make your own rhyme and put it in. And then there's a few different ones there. And the reason I made this page is when I'm doing readings at the school or the library, the kids always focus on that page because obviously nobody's child is Superman. Nobody's child is president of the United States. You know, nobody around here at least. But when I get to that page, the kids realize, hey, that's my mom, that's my dad. They do that job. My dad's a teacher. My mom's a chef. And it's very funny watching the little kids interact with all that. And then, you know, that's for mom, or excuse me, that's for dad to write out what he does. So the reason I'm saying it's still hard to figure out who it's for, because I don't think there's probably I would guess maybe 10% of dads are like yourself and like me, that it's easy for us and normal for us to grab our kids and tell them, hey, I love you so much. You guys make me proud. I would rather be, there's nothing I'd rather be than your dad. But most men, I don't know if it's conditioning or DNA or what, but they're just not wired that way. So I do seem to find a better response from the mothers, the wives that purchase the book and give it to the spouse. So they seem to see that, you know, the husband is taking the time to sit down with the child. And the book, it's a 3.5 minute read. It's a real simple, easy read, and it's an easy connection. And if you go to the reviews on Amazon, one of them says, you know, my kid, as soon as he was done reading the book, the kid wanted him to read it again. So it's funny because it makes the kid feel like the center of their world. So reading the book to the child, it puts all that focus on the child, and the child realizes, wow, no matter what opportunity comes along, he would rather be my dad than anything else. And when they feel that way, it's kind of a strange feeling to give to a child. And I think we miss the boat a lot on that, because a lot of people think, oh, my kids are my friends, and you know, we're gonna do this. And I agree, they can be your friends, but usually that comes later in life. Because I tell my kids, I said, look, you're in school, you guys have tons of friends. You got one dad right now. You know, there's one man that will lay down his life for you, and that's me. And now, I mean, it's totally different with the 26-year-old. You know, she comes over and we hang out and we have a great time. But the 6-year-old, you know, he needs a dad. He needs to know, what does it look like to be a man? You know, what should I be? What kind of role model am I looking for? And the girls need that as well, because when they go to look, you don't have any daughters, you lucky brat. They when the girls are going out and looking for a man, we want them to have a good example of what a man should be and what he should do.
Mhm.
We don't want the guy that's, getting drunk and beating up the mom and all that kind of stuff. That's not what you want to be. And if that's normal for that girl, that's what she'll gravitate to.
Mhm.
But my daughters know what a man should look like. And I'm not trying to say I'm this great guy. I'm just saying I'm a present, active dad. I'm there for them every day. There's never a time that I'm gone at night and they don't know where I'm at. That just doesn't happen. Right? My wife always knows where I'm at. If I'm not there, most likely I'm at a soccer tournament out of town somewhere, which I will be next week in Savannah for my son. So we're driving up for that one. But no, I'm always involved in the kids' lives. They always know that I'm there. And they need that role model in their life. And for some reason, society, whatever idiot is running society, he's trying to tell people, oh, you don't need a dad. You don't need a dad. No, kids need a dad. They need a dad. They need somebody that's that hard rock, immovable, no matter what happens in life and the whole thing collapses, dad can fix it.
Yeah.
And my wife hates it because no matter what happens at the house, my kids always say, "Oh, dad can fix it." You have a bruise on your leg. Oh, dad can fix it. No matter what it is, my wife laughs because no matter what it is, they have in their little tiny minds, whatever happens, dad can fix it. Which, I try to. You do the best that you can with it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I want to ask you this. I think, when I think back to when my boys were growing up, working in corporate America, I was like, I always knew that I was going to be the dad that went to all their games. I coached every single one of their teams from the ages of 4 all the way up through high school. I was that dad. I can count on one hand how many maybe school events or games that I may have missed for whatever reason. But I was always there. School events, parent teacher conferences, field trips. I was the one that was always going with them on these different activities. And I think back to those times when, because I was working in corporate America, I had a full-time job. And I think back to those times, and I know without a doubt that if I was in that role at the company and they ever told me, no, you can't go do that with your kids, or no, you can't go to that game, or no, you can't go to take them to that practice. We need you here to finish this or finish that. I would have said, okay, I quit. I literally would have walked out of that job. I know I would have, because my number one role was to be a dad, not to fulfill this company. Now, it was important that I provide for the family and make that income to take care of my family and all that. But I would have found some other line of work.
yeah.
Being rich, working 80, 90, 100 hours a week, doing those sorts of things so I could have all the money in the world was not important to me. Now, would it have been nice? Would it have made things easier? Maybe. But at the end of the day, the number one thing that I wanted to do was to be a dad. And that sounds like that's something that is important to you. When I think
I,
about when I think about my boys, I know that, them being older now, I know that there are a number of things that I would have wished I would have done differently as a dad.
sure.
I messed up all the time. Hell, I still mess up now, but I know that I did the best I could. For you, you've got a 26-year-old and a 3-year-old. When you look at that 3-year-old, or you look at that 4-year-old, or you look at that 6-year-old, all those kids that you have that are much younger, right? And think, okay, there were some mistakes I made with your older daughter, right? There were some things that I did that I probably could have done handled a little different, could have done a little bit different. With these ones, I have that chance to make up those opportunities. So, what kind of regrets did you have with your older kids that translating to your younger kids? You're like, you know what? I'm not going to make that same mistake this time.
So I'm glad you brought that up. Let's start with older daughter. When older daughter was in school, I was not nearly as many of her events. She did like the dance competition and things like that. I was not nearly as involved in her schooling as I should have been. Now, that being said, I was building a tree service at the time, so I was usually out cutting trees and all that. And she understood that. But if I had the retrospect that I have today, I would have made more time to do that stuff. Even though I was tired and exhausted, I would have made more time to be involved in some of her stuff doing that. because I was not as involved. And in all honesty, I didn't have a good example of what a dad was and how a dad should have been. My father, in some instances, he gave me a great example of what not to be as a dad. He wasn't involved in any sporting event that we ended up getting involved into. It wasn't from my mom or my dad. It was a friend or somebody else that brought us along, and they never attended, not once. I was on the wrestling team in high school and the swim team in high school. My dad and mom had been divorced. My dad went back to Pennsylvania, but my mom never showed up to one event, not even one time. So I knew how much that hurt and how much it bothered me.
Hmm.
So I'm definitely way more involved in their schooling and their after school activities now than I was before, and I regret that. Um, and even some of the discipline stuff. So when you're a younger dad, you have this idea like, hey, this is going to be perfect, that has to be perfect, this has to be perfect. And either you get lazier when you get older or more understanding. I haven't decided yet that it's not going to be perfect. They got to do what they can do. And you're not going to have perfect children. They're going to make mistakes. And you have to have a little grace when they make some of those mistakes. So maybe most likely when I was younger, I didn't have as much grace for mistakes that I do now. So that's a good observation on your part. I don't like to talk about it, but yeah, it's true. It's true. So you have to evaluate, like you said, at that end of the spectrum, 26 down to 3, how's it going to be?
Hmm.
So the other thing that I try to do as a dad, I try to be the guy that teaches them how to do X, Y, or Z. So I taught them all to swim. It's not a hard thing to teach a kid to swim. People think you need to hire an expert, you need to do this. No, you put them in the pool, you go 2 feet away from the side, and you just push them, right? And then just that little incremental, incremental, incremental. So they all have been taught how to swim by dad. Snow skiing, which is probably my favorite thing to do, and I probably have done it 3 times in the last 15 years. I love to snow ski, but I've taken the kids to snow ski. I didn't get to go down the slopes as much as I wanted because I was showing them, but still, they went skiing. Hey, when they get older and when they go skiing, they'll say, "Oh, my dad taught me how to ski, playing chess." In the back of the book, I did make the comment that he's taught most of his children how to play chess on this page.
Hmm.
So the reason I say most is because the baby still hasn't learned chess, but I will teach her. My 16-year-old was just at a small chess tournament that they set up at the school, and he won that. And yesterday, the 16-year-old was the one that won the chess tournament. Yesterday, that 16-year-old chess tournament winner lost to my 6-year-old son that also has learned chess. So, and I have lost to both of them as well. I don't like admitting on this huge broadcast that all these people are going to see, like, wait, this guy lost to a 6-year-old in chess? Yes, but his teacher was a pretty decent teacher. So I have taught this kid to play chess.
Yeah.
And when he beats me, he gets a $20 bill. And he's beat me twice now. I'm not happy about that. So, but and here's the thing. I want to throw this out there to all these dads that are going to watch this. Sometimes I see dads, for instance, they're teaching their kid how to play chess and they'll let them win. And I get that. But when they win on their own and they know that they weren't allowed to win, that they actually bested and earned that, oh my gosh, the look on their face is just hilarious. I mean, my son, his smile was this big. His face ain't that big, but his smile was this big. I had to take a photo of the chessboard. I had to send it to mom. He's telling everybody, I beat dad in chess. Yes, he pronounced it chess, Chetth. So it's a huge feeling and a great accomplishment for these kids to beat dad in whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I don't let them beat me. My wife's like, did you let them win? I said, heck no. They are going to win on their own merit. And they will stick to it. And my 16-year-old beats me all the time. I cannot pay. I used to pay him $5 if he beat me. I can't afford to pay him anymore. He's just that good. So,
Yeah.
that's just life though, right? But
Yeah.
I don't believe in letting them win. I don't believe in letting them win.
I was the same way. My boys, they played sports their whole lives, like your kids playing soccer and all that. They love playing basketball, and I'd get out there when they were younger every once in a while and play a little one-on-one against them. And I was, I coached their teams and all that. I was a super competitive guy. I did not let them beat me. I did the best I could as far as playing against them. But when they started getting older, they started getting into their teenage years. I really had to, I mean, I was really battling them. They were getting bigger and stronger and faster. And yeah, there were many, many times that I was like, okay, I can't win anymore. They're that much better than me.
I
So
love it.
yeah, it's great.
But look, they like you just said, they get that accomplishment of putting you down and me. I'll take the hit, but they love it, and it just feeds their ego, which is good. You want them to
Yeah.
have a good ego.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me ask you this for my listeners, viewers want to look you up, learn a little bit more about you, or maybe pick up the book. Where's the best place for them to do those things?
Okay, so Amazon has the book. It's called My Favorite Job in the Whole Wide World. They could put in the name Andrew Stillman, it'll come up. I did put a Facebook page, which is called the same title, My Favorite Job in the Whole Wide World. They can check it out there. I made it as cheap as I possibly could because I think it's a great message. And if I could stroke a pen and have every dad have this book, I don't care about the money. I'm talking about the message. To let their kids know how important they are to them, I would do it. I made it as cheap as Amazon would let me. It's $7.99 on Amazon. And this one is ordered from Barnes& and Noble. It's a little bit bigger. And I think it's $9 on Barnes& and Noble. But I'm not trying to get money. I have money. I have a tree service. I'm trying to get the message out to dads. Kids need to know you are the most important thing in my life. Nothing else matters. And you already know that. So I don't need to tell you, but other people need to know that. So that's the easiest way to find it. And then if there's any other, shoot me a message. I don't care. The Facebook page is there. They can shoot me a message or a question. I've had people ask me if they can come give me the money and buy the book. I don't want to carry around a bunch of books, but I do want to tell you this story right before we get off. My wife's in a group called Musical Motion, and it's a local group that the county sponsors where the kids get together and they do little activities and stuff. And of course, my wife, having 9 of the children, has gone through with all the kids. So now she's there with the 3-year-old. So Miss Elizabeth runs this program. So she heard about the book, and Miss Elizabeth says, "Oh, I want to see the book." So I get it to Miss Elizabeth. She takes it home to her husband, who reads it to his son, and the son's 21, but he liked it. It was an emotional connection for both of them. So he hands it to his friend at work, and the friend at work goes home. He's reading it to his little princess, and I got the photo. It's hilarious. It's this tiny little, blonde girl in a pink dress. She's got to be 2 years old, and this guy's a big burly with the beard. He looks like a diesel mechanic, right? And he's reading this book, and she's over the shoulder, and I thought, man, that just melts my heart. So the next day, Mr. Elizabeth's husband goes to get the book back, and he says, "Hey, I need the book back." And the friend says, "Oh no, I'm not giving you the book. Here's $10. Go buy your own." So he kept the book. So that is what the whole reason that I wanted to do that. I can tell my own children that, and I can show that, but I think the message needs to be out there that the kids need to know, hey, my dad, I know he's got a lot going on, but I'm his world. That's my number one job. So
Yeah.
thank you for having me, Brian. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, no, it's all good. So listen, thank you very much for being on. Thanks for writing the book. I think it's an important message, not only for kids to hear, but for dads to share.
Yes.
So I think it's a super important message. It's one that I frequently told my boys as they grew up that my number one job was to be their dad, and so it's a message that our kids need to hear. And when they hear it, it's amazing to watching their faces light up. So thank you for writing it. Thank you for putting it out there. And I do hope that it does reach a lot of dads' hands so they can share it with their kids. It's one of those books that it is easy to read. It's easy to look at. The pictures are colorful, and it's something that kids can read through with their dad every single night and not get bored of it. So thank you for doing that, and I appreciate you being on, brother.
Brian, thank you so much. Have a good day. God bless. Anything else, shoot me an email.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, this has been another episode of Dad Up. I want to thank my good friend Andrew Stillman for being on. Be sure to go check out his book. The links are in the show notes below. So make sure you do that. Pick it up for you. Listen, there's Father's Day coming up. It's a great opportunity for moms. I have a lot of moms that watch my episodes. So pick up the book for your husband to read to the kids. It's a great opportunity. Father's Day coming up. So make sure you guys do that. And if you are not yet subscribed to my show, please make sure you do that so you don't miss any of the awesome guests that I have on each and every week. And as always, I look forward to seeing you all in the next episode of Dad Up. Wow, another amazing episode in the books. So much was shared, and I'm truly grateful my guest was able to pour into you to help you elevate your dad game and really dad up. Make sure you bang that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're here, please don't forget to leave me a rating and a review. I always appreciate the feedback. And one last thing, don't forget, your role as a dad is one of the most important roles you have. So if you need a little help or have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on my website at daduptribe.com or at my Instagram page at Dad Up Podcast. Until next time, everyone, Dad Up.